We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
What's up, guys? So today we're going to do an overview of my Sony G Master lenses. I've got 4 in the setup here. They all complement each other pretty well. This video is going to be a quick overview of all of them. We're going to do a deep dive review in future videos of any of these lenses. Let me know in the comments which ones you want to see the deep dive of first. Let me go ahead and introduce you to some studio upgrades I did over Black Friday. First and foremost, we've got improved lighting, so I got the Aperture Light Storm. This is the bi-color, and it came with this fantastic remote. You hopefully noticed that my audio is a little bit crisper. I went ahead and got the Sennheiser shotgun mic. Links below if you want to see those models, thinking about upgrading yourselves. I'll do a quick overview, then we'll dive into a little bit with each lens, some photo examples, and then we will wrap it up with our overall thoughts. So starting on my right, we've got the 85mm f1.4. This is the only prime in the range that we've got here. This is going to be great for portraits. It's also great to really make you think outside of the box. You've got that fixed zoom range, so you're going to really have to focus on your framing. Next up, we've got the 16-35. This is what I really use every day for videos. It's great at vlogging, capturing a lot of scenery all in one picture. It's also great indoors when you want to capture something, but you're really pressed up close against it. After that, we've got the 24-70. This is my go-to lens for travel, really any day. If I'm not sure what I'm getting into, I'll grab my 24-70. Last up, we've got the 100-400 variable aperture. The reason I chose this over the 70-200 is because you get the extra reach out of it. I was able to sacrifice the aperture for that extra reach. The one thing this guy has over the other setup here is optical steady shot, so you do get that built-in stabilization to the lens as well. Let's go ahead and do a deep dive into each lens. We'll take an overview and then we will wrap it up with our thoughts. One last note, you may notice that my frame is a little bit different than normal here. Much better. So now you guys are nice and close. Let's talk about these lenses. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the 85 prime here that we talked about. What do I use this for specifically? So this video is about my use cases. You may find different use cases yourself, but what this is great at universally is subject isolation. So it's really gonna allow you to blur the background, foreground, whatever you need to really make sure that subject is isolated well. Let's take a look here at a few example photos. We've got a picture of my dog Haley here. Followed by, actually I've used this lens a few times for landscape photography. So the nice thing with it being so compact is that it fits well on a plane, you can travel with it. I use this a good amount of times for landscapes just because it's so convenient and compact to throw on my camera. The great thing about this lens is it's gonna make you think outside of the box. Because you have a fixed zoom, you really have to think about framing and focus on what you want your users to see. I've always found that I enjoy primes simply for that aspect, that I really have to think outside the box, figure out what I want to shoot specifically, and then adapt my framing, my positioning, however I want to capture that shot to accommodate the lens. And that's a good thing. It makes you push yourself. It makes you think really a lot about the shot versus on a zoom, you can simply just do a quick twist and now you have a completely different framing for the shot. I do love this lens. I think everyone needs a prime in their kit. 85, thumbs up from me. Next up, we've got the 16-35. This is probably one of my favorite lenses. I use it a lot for videos, for vlogging. However, mainly what I find this is great for is a landscape where you really want a specific object to stand out. This has a great focus range, so you can actually get really close to what you want to shoot. You'll notice in these example photos, you could call them landscape, but most of them have that object that's really in the foreground, and then we kind of let the background blur off a little bit here. That's really what I recommend a 16-35 for, either videos or something where you want to get close to an object but allow some of that background in. And then last but not least, indoor photos where you need to capture a lot of the room, but you're not able to back up or necessarily get the framing you would want for most lenses. The reason I don't like using this for landscapes is because you end up capturing too much. Here's a good example where you can see my car. This is literally right across the street and look how tiny it is. I think this was a good shot because I got relatively close to the object, but in a lot of examples, especially when you're hiking, where you're really trying to capture a lot of the landscape, it's gonna end up being so tiny in this. You're gonna see basically the landscape horizon, and it's gonna be tiny little trees. You're not really gonna be able to capture much of it. It's gonna be a lot of sky and a lot of foreground. Focus on what out of the landscape is most attractive and make sure you capture that. A lot of people might ask, why get this lens, especially if you have a 24-70. The 16 does make a good difference, especially when you've got something close to you, such as vlogging, where you need to capture your face, but you really want to let the background in as well. The 24 is going to crop a little bit more. You actually may have noticed a little bit of a difference in this scene. That's because I had to shoot on the 24-70. So 16-35, love this lens, one of my favorites. Next up, we've got the 24mm here. So this is something I use really every day. It's a good travel lens because it's versatile. It's a good zoom range. You can do landscapes. You can do something a little bit closer up. You do have the resolution on things like the A7R III to crop that as well. So if you really want to get that extra reach, don't feel like you can't necessarily crop a photo taken from this at 70, make it look more like 100. Overall, I find that I do use this most for landscapes. It does allow me to really frame up exactly what I want to capture. Take a look here at an example where we took a shot at the 24 end followed by the 70 end. So you can see kind of how wide we can get. This was a beautiful sunset down in Santa Monica that I wanted to capture. For many photographers, this will be the first lens you get. This was the first one I got along with the 85. So I definitely recommend, if you're starting out getting into the Sony ecosystem, this is a lens you take a deep look at and consider. Last but not least, we've got the 100-400 G Master. So you'll notice how big of a lens this is. It fully extended, it's a pretty hunkin' lens, but it's an awesome one too to have in your kit. Anytime you want to get animals, I even use this for landscapes when there's something cool I want to zoom in on and see inside of that. This is really a good go-to lens to have in your kit. You always need a telephoto for certain use cases. This is the first one I'd recommend, even over the 70-200. If you take a look at some of these example shots here, you can see subject isolation is not an issue. You can still get a fantastic amount of bokeh, even though it's got the variable aperture, it's not the fixed f2.8. Let's take a look at some other shots here. What are your use cases here? It's mostly wildlife, as well as some landscapes where I want to get that extra reach, or there's something very unique about the landscape. I'm far away, and I want to make sure that's the really big focal point of the image. In this example up at Griffith Park, I was able to get a really cool shot of downtown LA. You can see the sun was rising right above it, and there's a layer of clouds and probably smog underneath. So in that example, I was really happy I brought this telephoto with me. The 24 wouldn't have been able to do a similar instance of that photo. Just to give you a frame of reference here, how this stacks up against the 24-70, we'll take a look at this lighthouse I shot. So in the 24 example, you'll notice it's pretty far zoomed out. You're really getting the whole landscape. I was able to get all the way into that spot on the lighthouse with this 400 zoom reach. So it really let me zoom in as far as I wanted to, and it just gives you the idea of scope of this lens, of how much it can take you into that photo or into that landscape, towards that animal, towards that athlete that you need it to. So I definitely recommend this lens as the first telephoto in your kit. If you need a lot of portraits, weddings, maybe consider the 70-200, but for my use cases, that really didn't align. I couldn't be happier with this 100-400. All right, so in summary, all these lenses are great. I'm shooting on the 16-35 right now. That's why you don't see it in front of me. Start off with the all-around travel lens. This is great if it's the only lens that you can have. Follow that up by the prime. This is also gonna be great for low light. After that, you're gonna want some reach so you can shoot different landscapes or objects or birds or wildlife. Then last but not least, get your video lens. It's gonna give you that extra wideness in your shots, so it just kind of rounds out this whole kit. My next lens is definitely gonna be the 24mm f1.4 prime lens that Sony announced. I wanna add it to this kit. I know I have that focal range covered, but I don't have that depth of field as well as that size. This is a pretty big lens. It does give you the zoom, but the 24 that just came out is really tiny and it's gonna be nice for vlogging. So that's it, guys. Let me know what you wanna see next. I'm gonna do specific in-depth reviews of all of these lenses. I'm happy to do any order that you guys think makes sense. Which one do you want to see first? Maybe I'll start with the 24 to 70. Should I start with the Prime, or do you guys want to see the telephoto because there's not a lot of reviews out there? Happy to do them in any order. As usual, smash that subscribe button. I will see you guys next time, and thanks for joining me today.